yes, this will take longer time. Yes, everybody, including your clients, at time will misunderstand you because they're like, why is this not happening quickly enough? But I'm willing to go that route and take the heat, knowing on the other end, you'll be so much better for everybody.
Yeah.
And now that we've had our program for about, now it's 3.5 years, now people are beginning to see that, like, wait, you know what I mean? Like, and Ali, I'm sure you get this where someone's like, oh, that's what you've been trying to tell me for the last 18 months.
Yeah.
That's what you've been trying to tell me for the last 2 years. But the question is, am I authentic enough for me to own what it is that I truly want to do, knowing that I'll be misunderstood for 2 years?
Welcome to Reward, the podcast of The Trust. We are the show specifically for women entrepreneurs who want to build businesses into the multi-million-dollar revenues and beyond, but especially because we know the reward is much greater than that. I'm Ali Brown, and I'm excited to introduce you to these diverse female leaders from a variety of industries, women making huge impact and who are unwilling to settle for the status quo. On the web, visit jointhetrust.org to learn more about our modern community for forward-thinking 7- and 8-figure women entrepreneurs. That's jointhetrust.org. See you there. Now, get ready to enjoy this episode's powerful conversation. Nneka, Dr. Una, there's so many layers to you, aren't there?
There are a number.
I can't wait to talk to you today. I was just telling you in the pre-chat that, there are some guests that I know well, and we get on, we just start like riffing. And then there's some that I'm excited to get on with because I know there's so much more to their stories and who they've become in the process of what they've created. And, I've gotten to know you a bit through the trust. I want to tell you that Nneka is someone who is, she's very smart because she just listens and kind of looks at us all sometimes and just and we wonder what she's going to say. And then, the whole time, I think I told you the first time that you were at the meeting, I'm like, I came up, I think I was like, do you like it? I'm like, are you okay? And then at the end, you stood up and said something so beautiful and profound about the experience. And so I just want to let you all know that, like, when Dr. Una speaks, we typically all turn and listen. And I want to advise you all to do that as well today with whatever she's sharing. Are you at home, or what is this beautiful office? Is this at an office?
I am at home. Yeah, this is where all the magic happens, all my podcasts, live streams, all of that. Yeah.
So in a nutshell, can you kind of give a quick state of the union of what you do and how you do it and who you help?
Yeah, so I'm a pediatrician by training. I have a number of things that I do, like you alluded to. So I own my own private practice, and there I help, moms and dads confidently raise their kids and all of that. In 2016, I kind of had this awareness that medicine as we know it has shifted. And if I don't shift along with it, if I don't adapt, then I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. And that's when I started embracing speaking and consulting and coaching and all of that. And then I set up a company called EntreMD, which is like entrepreneurial MD. It's my mission. It's a business I use for my mission, which is to help 100,000 physicians build profitable businesses so they have the freedom to live life and practice medicine on their terms. Many people won't know this, but this is one of the most trying times for physicians. Healthcare has changed. It's more of an economic space. We didn't get a business education at all. So it's so hard to compete. There's a loss of autonomy. 60 to 80% of physicians, depending on the study, are burned out some kind of way, willing to walk away from medicine, like walk away and go teach in their kids' school. That's how bad it is. And
Wow.
so my mission is to help people because I'm like, entrepreneurship is a way you take back control. You're back in control of your finances and all of that. And if you can add this skill to the skill you already have, you can fall in love with medicine again and do it the way you want to do it and still have financial freedom. So I do that through podcasts, books, live events. I have a year-long program that's the EntreMD Business School. But that's my mission. That's what I spend, my career doing, is supporting other physicians.
What's changed in medicine? What's your observations over the last, 10 years?
Yeah, it's a number of things. The first thing is, it was not intentional, but the way it was is that physicians had monopoly, if you will, right? There are not many players. The doctors were the ones who owned the private practices, worked everywhere, and all of that. And so when I trained, and I graduated from my residency program in 2008. I mean, there were barely any urgent cares. Minute clinics did not exist. Walmart did not, like Walmart, I could not imagine. There was no way I could have imagined Walmart being my competition, right? And so we've gone from this space where it was just the physicians to this space where everybody is. Amazon is there, JP Morgan is there, Walmart is there, CVS is there, everybody's there. And so we had this thing of you could hang a shingle and they will come because we were the only ones in the space. Now
Yeah.
you hang the shingle, they are not coming. You have to apply the
Even in
same,
pediatrics, huh? Even in
even in
pediatrics.
pediatrics,
Okay.
yes.
Yeah,
You
because I
have
remember in
to.
the old days, you would just be like, "Well, who's the best town pediatrician?" You would just go to them, and that's who you'd go to,
Yeah.
right?
And, so that's brought a huge
Mm.
change. And then also, other than the different entities coming in, well, it used to be you'd have the pediatrician, but you have nurse practitioners, PAs, all of those, physician assistants, and all of those. So it's a much smaller market, if you mean, because there's so many more players. And the
Mm.
level of, you would have noticed this from the pandemic, the level of distrust of the healthcare system, right? Like, um, you know, with the vaccines and all of those kind of things, and maybe we should do this naturally and not use medicines and all of those. It is just such a perfect storm. And the old way we did things just doesn't work
Mm.
anymore, right? There's, over the last 10 years as well, we've had so many more administrators, and, they're kind of the decision makers in this space. And they're not all bad or anything like that, but sometimes it's profits before people, sometimes.
Mhm.
And sometimes then the physicians, they're like, this is the number of patients you have to see because this is what we need for our bottom line. These are the kind of products or medications you're going to use because this is what we need for our bottom line. And so there's this thing of, well, this is not what is best for the patient. Like, I know better. I don't want to have to do this, but you're in a system where that's what you have to do. And then to
Mm.
top it off, with the pandemic, right? Like in the post-pandemic world, the cost of delivering services is higher. The cost of hiring team members is higher. There's the great resignation, all of this. And then the insurance companies come together and they go like, you know what I think we need to do about this? We need to reduce what we're actually paying the physicians for services. Like, this is brilliant, right? So not only is everything becoming more expensive, the reimbursements for the services are getting even less, right? For people in insurance-based models.
Mm.
So it's like so many things, quote unquote, wrong at the same time. And so many are stuck in this is the way it's always been. And I'm like, that is so like 2012. It's not going to work. We need
Mm.
to adapt so we can thrive. We can still thrive in this space, but we need to adapt.
So
So
what are I'm fascinated with this. I wanted to ask one more question on it, and how what are some things that immediately you help them reframe and do differently?
great question. So the first thing is this notion. There is this notion I'm a doctor, I'm not an entrepreneur, right? I am a professional, I don't sell. I didn't get any business skills. In fact, in the investment world, they call bad deals doctor deals, right? Because like we just are not smart. We don't have those kind of smarts. We have patient kind of smarts, right? And so it's really an identity shift from the first point, because I'm like, if you're going to invest 10 years of your life, some of the best years of your life, and multiple six figures to get an education, you cannot put the return for investment in somebody else's hand. Like, you can't do that. And so the first thing is, every physician is already an entrepreneur. You already have a company. Is Dr. You Incorporated? You already have it. It may be a company that sucks. It may be a company that has no visibility. It may be a company that's not well run, but you have the company. And so now is the time to rise as the CEO you are and embrace that role. So whether you're employed or you have a private practice or you're a coach or a consultant, it doesn't matter. You are an entrepreneur. Like, stop buying into this ideology that you can't be a great entrepreneur. What you have to learn is not harder than replacing hearts, right? Replacing knees or intubating premature babies. Like, you've done hard things. This is just one more hard thing. So
Mm,
that's the first thing. The second thing is really realizing that someone who is running a very successful business is not better than me. So I learned this from Brian Tracy because when I started my private practice, I knew nothing. I was like a super shy, socially awkward, introverted introvert, which you can tell does not go with business at all. And then I was reading one of his books and he said, all business skills are learnable. I still remember the
mm,
day. I still remember where I was. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, now I have no business skills, but one thing I do know how to do is I know how to learn. Like I have had to learn a ridiculous amount of things to become a physician. That's when I fell in love with like learning and acquiring business skills. Like I can market, I can sell,
mm,
I can network, I can speak, I can lead a team. If I feel I can't do it, it's just I don't know how. I can go learn how. And so
mm,
once we start embracing things like that, it makes all the change. And I think the third thing is really a mindset thing because we have this feeling like business destroyed medicine, so we don't do business, or I don't really
mm.
care about the money. I just want to help people. And most, physicians don't really go to med school to make money. I mean, there are easier ways to make money, right?
For
And
sure.
but that thought process of money doesn't matter is what leads to so many businesses going out of business because business is an economic sport. Like it's like saying I'm a basketball player and I don't care about balls. Like you that's the whole game. You know what I mean? And I'm like I'm like, yes, it's people before profits always, but it's not people number one and then profits number 7,000. It's like people number one and profits number two. Like this matters. If we don't
Mm,
figure out the money thing, then we lose the right to serve people because we have to shut down our businesses and then it helps no one. And so really
yeah.
shifting that where money's not good or bad. Money is, mercury paper with dead men's faces on it. It just takes the shape of whoever has it. And since I think you're a pretty good person as a doctor, maybe you should have it, right? Like, and so let's embrace that and not be ashamed of it. So,
Mm,
yeah, so it's things like that, but it's amazing because when a physician gets it, and makes that shift. It's beautiful to see someone who was, burnt out, who was really, who was really living month to month. They're big checks, but they're still month to month, and feeling like they don't have any control and all of that. To see them go from that to now I'm building a profitable business. I'm not ashamed of making money. I'm able to care for my team. I'm
mm.
able to build a team so I have more time off. I'm spending more time with my family. My marriage is better. Like to see all of that, it makes it worth whatever I have to do to support doctors. It's really magical.
I love that. I mean, hey, healthy patients, healthy profits, it all goes together. When did you know you wanted to be a physician?
I think I always knew. My dad was a surgeon. My mom was a clinical pharmacist. So I kind of grew up in a medical home. I did love math and physics and those kind of things. I thought about engineering. That was the initial thing. But the thing was, at that age, I was probably like 10, 12. I was a tomboy, like big time Tom. I would do arm wrestling with the boys. Like I was one of the boys. And, in Nigeria then, back in those days, I mean, you could look at the engineering department, it's probably like three girls. And I was like, tomboy plus department where there are only boys might not be very good. Maybe I should look for something else.
Mhm.
But so I thought about medicine, but I think my big attraction to medicine was that people said it was too hard and you can't do it. So it was kind of a dare. I was like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, I'll just go do it. That's how I ended up there. I wish I had a fancier story, but yeah, I just
Did
I just knew it was hard. I was like, I'll go do it.
Was your father supportive because he knew what it would take? Or was he worried about you?
No, he wasn't worried at all. My dad my dad would have been supportive of anything I wanted to do. That's kind of the way he was, and he did not doubt any of us. There's four of us. He did not doubt any of us for any reason. As far as he's concerned, you can do it. Now, to put it in perspective, he went to medical school. Like he got a scholarship to go to UC Berkeley to medical school from Nigeria.
Wow.
And he graduated the top of his class, right? Like back in the day, like his professors will call him and like, so you had the highest score in this class. He's like, yeah. He's like, and you're black. He's like, mm-hmm. And you know what I mean? He was that kind of guy. So as far as he's concerned, you can do anything. Um, but the culture I grew up in, so I don't know if you know this, but the Nigerian culture, you don't have that many options. You get to be a lawyer, a doctor, an engineer or accountant. Those are like, that's it. You don't tell
So
them I
they
want to,
value very high educational career goals.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Like you say, I want to be a major in English. They're like, you will pay your own tuition because we're not
Got it.
doing that. Yeah, that's
You will
that's
be an
kind of the way that is.
overachiever and you'll like it.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. And you can choose to like it if you want, but you will be an overachiever.
Okay. Okay. So med school, like you knew you were going at some point. You made that decision. Okay. Almost just to see if you could do it, right? Just
Yeah,
and you
like
knew it was valued as well. You could, I mean, you said your dad will let you do anything, but at the same time you knew that that was really a valued
yeah,
career.
that was really valued. And it's funny because I just remembered this. Now the Nigerian school system is a model of the European school system, which for med school means you go from high school to med school. There's no pre-med or anything like
Mm.
that. And I was one of those people. I liked skipping classes, so I skipped my final year in elementary school. I skipped my final year in high school, and so I actually turned 17 in med school. I was 16 when I got in.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Wow. My
crazy stuff.
skipping classes was different than your skipping classes. Just let's I thought I'm like, "Oh, you were cool. You're ditching school." You're like, "No, I moved up a grade."
I moved up a grade. I moved up a few grades. I was
Who
very
was
competitive.
more focused? Yeah, obviously the answer is you. So you turned 17 in oh my gosh. So did you always like pre-plan your life? Were you always this determined? Like what well, it seems like you are. Like you had a goal and you just go for it. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I was very determined, but I don't think I had a lot of I didn't have a long-term vision. Like I can't say where I am now is where I always planned to be. But when I was in, like when I was in elementary school, I was like, oh, so I have an option to finish that early if I study really hard. I'm gonna do that. When I was in, like in high school, I'm like, oh, I can take this exam a year earlier. Like I have the option. I'm gonna do that. In fact, when I got into med school, I felt less than. Like I knew I got in earlier, but I didn't feel I could compete because I was like, I'm also here, kind of. But these are the real people who are here doing the things. And so
Mm,
my first semester, I kind of worked hard, but I didn't compete because I felt I couldn't compete. I felt everybody there was better than me. And so I remember, looking at my grades at the end of the first semester, and there were some B's, but there were mostly A's. I was like, wait a minute. You mean I didn't compete and I'm competing? Like, hello. And then that put me back in not overdrive, but I was like, I'm gonna give it my best shot because I have a chance here, I
yeah.
belong here, and all of those kind of things. And I really just went all in. I went for it, which was magical to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you obviously graduated medical school. I know you did your residency in New Jersey, I believe it was. And
Yes.
you get out into the real world of medicine and then owning your own practice. What was the transition into then teaching others and having the feeling you had the position to do that?
So, I don't even know if I felt that way. I started off my private practice. I was scared spitless because like again, super shy, introverted, didn't know anything about business. Didn't, and when I look at entrepreneurs, I'm like, wow, those are the entrepreneurs. I did not identify as that. I didn't even really see that in my future. Like, like I didn't see that. And so after a few months, when I heard Brian Tracy say that about, business skills are learnable, I started learning those. And within 2 years, we really got to this place where, I had a doctor working for me on every Fridays, had a long weekend every weekend, which was good, which was great. The money was good. I didn't have any burnout. Like I was really enjoying what I was doing. until we got to 2016, and I just had this knowing. I'm like, if this is all I do, we're gonna be in trouble. And the funny thing is, the way I thought about it, it was really dramatic words. It's like adapt or die. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't
Mm.
change, this is the end of your career. Words like, when the shift is happening, but it's underground almost. But when it comes to light, it's going to be so ugly. It's going to be like a bloodbath. Like, these are the words that came to mind for me. And
Wow.
so when I started researching, I said, okay, I could learn to speak. People make money that way. I could be a consultant. People make money that way, and all of those things. My natural response, and this is kind of the way I do so many things, is I was like, okay, but I'm not the only physician. There's a million of us. And so it's not going to be a bloodbath for me. It's going to be a bloodbath for everybody. So while I'm learning all these things and they're working, why don't I help other physicians do the same? That's really where that came from, right? And so why don't I help them do the same? I'm like, come on, guys, we can do this. We can learn this. Look at me. I'm an introvert. If I can speak, I know it sounds cliche, but anybody can speak, right? And
Mm.
things like that. And so I started doing that informally for about a year or so. And then I told myself, I was like, yeah, but if you're gonna help, well, let me backtrack a little. So I studied and found that if you want to change a culture, the narrative of a community, if you can shift the ideology of 10% of them, you can shift the whole culture. And so that's
Mm.
where that whole thing of helping 100,000 people came from, because that's 10% of the physicians. And so I had to tell myself, you can help people informally and do all of these things. But if you are going to help 100,000 physicians, you kind of have to do it like you mean it. Like, you have to set up a company. You have to start helping people on a larger scale. It can't be what you're doing. It's great, but it's not going to hit the numbers. And
Mm.
that's really when EntreMD was born, which again, I did spitless because, as you alluded to, what gives me the right to do that? I don't have a business education. Yes, I've run a but at that point, I'd run one company, right? And like, who are you to do that? But the question is, well, who was doing it? In my eyes, nobody. Like, somebody has to do this. This is going to be really bad for physicians. And so I just went for it. I was terrified the entire time. When we launched the business school, I was so ashamed. I did it, but I was so ashamed. I was like, EntreMD Business School, you are completely crazy. Like, you don't have a business education, and here you are with a business school. Like, what's wrong with you? But I was more committed to supporting the physician community than I was relieving the shame and the embarrassment. So I
Mm.
was like, I'll do it. I'll do
Yeah.
it scared, but I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
Yeah. You've mentioned that, authenticity has been a journey for you, and I'm gonna guess this next part I'm saying is that, there when you then decided to come out and become when you decide to for many of us as well, like, we're doing what we do it well, and then we decide to become, like, a public teacher of it, a spokesperson for it, whether it's a movement or a program or something, and then there becomes this part of, okay, how much of this is about the program, how much of this is about me, how much do I personally share my authenticity, who I am? For many of us, this comes in many different levels. I know this has been something you've mentioned. I'd love you to share about that part of your journey.
Yeah, I think the starting point for that for me is really, I have this habit of traveling in time to me at 90. And I think I think about that version of me. So sometimes people, like, think about what will be read at your funeral. I'm a visual person, so I'm like, if I think about that, I will be dead in in a short amount of time. So let's not do that. Okay. Let's
Don't
pick something
manifest too
happy.
hard.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
no. I was like, yeah, let's not do that. And so I picked my 90th birthday party. And I think about, being there, being healthy, being with my family, then being with the people whose lives my life impacted and what they would say. And I really take the time to do that, and I come back to the present And I'm kind of committed to only building that. Like there's so many different things I could do, be, have, and all. And I'm like, yeah, but is that taking me where I want to go? I don't want to show up at 90 and say I wish I could have, because I will know I won't have the strength to do it then. I won't have the time to do it then. Like this is the time. And so what that means for me is I constantly build according to the pattern I think the pattern my life is supposed to follow. So for instance, I run my private practice, but I haven't put my hands on a patient in the last 2 years. The last time I went into my office physically was December 27th, 2021. I've been out for a minute. Now, that is something that typically physicians don't do at my age. I'm 44 now. But my plan was always to retire at 40 because I was like, I have multiple lives that I have to live. It's not a
Mm.
traditional thing. People don't do that. But from the second I started practicing, I started planning my retirement. So once I hit 40, I started working a day a week. And I hit 42 and I'm like, this is ridiculous. You're working a day a week and sometimes you take the week off. Like, this is so stupid. Like, what are you doing? Like, you know what to do. And I was okay with saying, okay, that was a chapter of my life and it was amazing. But now this new chapter is to help 100,000 doctors. That's the chapter. And I need to create the bandwidth to go all in on that. Now, not only do physicians not do that, but your Nigerian parents don't send you to medical school for you to retire at 40. Like this is not something that happens. But I was willing to be authentic and honor who I am, where I think I'm going, what I think I'm called to do. I was willing to do that. You know, there's a time I opened a second location and I was like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I was not afraid. I shut it down. I was like, forget
Mm.
that. I'm not doing it. Right. There are different ways people will run their programs and all of those things. And like, this is the standard way. I'm like, but this is what I know my people need. This is the way I
Mm.
know I need to show up for them. And so, yes, it may not be the industry standard, but this is exactly what I'm going to do. And so
Mm.
for me, authenticity is, some people see it as I just say what, I just say my mind, I just do all of those things. But sometimes your mind needs some discipline before you can say it. Like I don't see it that way. I see it as understanding where you're going, leaning into that, and not being afraid to go where you're going at
Mm. So
every step of the way.
your decisions line up
Yeah.
with your purpose. That
Yes.
to you is authenticity.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of talking, right? A lot of people blabbing and like, what are they even saying? But your actions, I like the word decision for you. It just seems really powerful. The decision. Right. And I think I
Yes.
first heard as well, like it may have been from Brian Tracy too. He's still around, isn't he? They're
He's
they're
still
trying they're
around.
pushing him out on the stage, but he's out there.
He's
Uh,
still out there.
he's like 97 or something. Maybe not, but he's still got the red tie and he's selling the products. But
Still
his
talks the
stuff
same
was
way in monotones. Yep.
totally a little robotic.
Yeah.
But I remember being handed a few of his books and they were so good. And I think I first heard from him that the word decide, there's a root of that. And if someone's going to comment on this, be like, this is wrong. It's Latin or what? I think it's a Latin. There's a root of it. It means cut off. Anyway, whatever the word decide comes
Mm.
from, it means to cut
Mm-hmm.
off. And as I'm hearing you speak, it just sounds like when you get clear on the decision you're going to make and move ahead and that it's aligned with what you desire and what you know will be beneficial to your followers, there is the other options don't bother you anymore. Like this is what we're doing.
They don't. They
Yeah.
don't. And over the years, I've learned to walk my path and be okay being misunderstood. I'll give you an example. In the entrepreneurial world, people like the quick, right? You sign up for this program, you do this thing for 30 days, and everything is amazing, and you're sipping margaritas on the beach. But anybody who's been an entrepreneur for longer than 2 seconds knows that's not the way it works, right? Now, one of the things that has happened in businesses with physicians is a lot of times we own our jobs. They're not true business assets. You can't sell them at the end. You can't really exit. You just shut them down. So when I started understanding this was when there was a lady, she had been a pediatrician for decades. Okay. And then she wanted to sell her private practice. She wanted to sell it for $40,000. Nobody would buy it. Nobody for 40 grand. Right. And I thought about like, how do you work a business for decades? And that's it. And I looked at the practice, and it was her job. There are no documented procedures. There was no team.
Mm.
So there was nothing to buy. And this was me really early on in my journey. And I said, listen, you can choose not to sell or sell. You can choose whatever, but whatever you do, you must set yourself up to sell. You must build from the beginning planning to sell. Choose not
Mhm.
to, but at least you have the option. And so in my programs, from the get go, I'm helping people build businesses that will be assets, build businesses that they can exit from, help them to grow as leaders, build teams, build processes, practice taking time away from the business. Like, go away for 2 weeks, go away for a month, take a vacation every quarter so you can test and see, can my business stand if I'm not there? Now, that's the harder way, right? Like that's the harder way to train people in business. The easier things that can give them quick wins and you walk away. But I know that's what they need. That's what I want them
Mm.
to have. That's what I want to be an industry standard. So yes, this will take longer time. Yes, everybody, including your clients, at time will misunderstand you because they're like, why is this not happening quickly enough? But I'm willing to go that route and take the heat, knowing on the other end, you'll be so much better for everybody.
Yeah.
And now that we've had our program for about, now it's 3.5 years, now people are beginning to see that, like, wait, you know what I mean? Like, and Ali, I'm sure you get this where someone's like, oh, that's what you've been trying to tell me for the last 18 months.
Yeah.
That's what you've been trying to tell me for the last 2 years. But the question is, am I authentic enough for me to own what it is that I truly want to do, knowing that I'll be misunderstood for 2 years?
I was just gonna say, the biggest lesson I've learned in this whole journey, and when you get super clear on what you want, is that you have to be okay with a lot of people not understanding. They may never understand. And even when you're giving your clients what you know they need, this has been the challenging part for me, giving clients what I know they need, and it may benefit them not now, but like 10 years away. Then I'll get the thank you, maybe, right?
Yeah, maybe, maybe, maybe they'll remember.
Maybe they'll remember. But it's about that longer term thinking. And I think right now there's an epidemic. It's like think of TikTok versus long form, right? They're like that people want the TikTok and and take a breath and listen to what Dr. Una is sharing with you all right now, because it is really profound that women start thinking this way. Men have been thinking this way for generations. It's a new privilege for us to be making these decisions. And women need to start thinking this way. There's a bigger game, there's bigger stakes, there's bigger impact that we could be making. And Nick, I know that you have some limited time, so I'm going to shift gears with your permission. Um, I knew a bit about you, and I know there was a point that you mentioned your husband at one point and a bit about what you do outside of your business. And then I don't know how I didn't see this earlier, but I was on Instagram, I think a few months ago, and I saw a video of you on stage preaching, and it brought me to tears. And then I became obsessed with Dominion Church, and I'm like following everything. I'm listening to the sermons and what you and your husband have created, and tell everyone about this part of your life and how that integrates, and a bit about your family, and give us the whole picture.
Yeah, so I have a what I think is a fascinating journey because I don't really remember a time that I didn't have a relationship with God. It's so weird. I didn't grow up in church, right? I didn't grow up in church, but I always, even as a kid, I remember taking walks and I'm just talking to God about my life and asking questions and all of those things. I can't trace where the origin is because from the time I was really little, that was my reality. But I do know that my grandmother, my dad's mother, she grew up. So this is back in the day. She grew up in the village. There were no churches,
Mm.
and this priest had come to plant the very first Catholic church in the village. And she was part of the team that they would take cement and pans on their heads and walk for miles to go build this building. And her husband, who was practically a voodoo priest, would kick her out of the house for days, like, you know, what are you doing? This is a white man's religion, or whatever that was. And so sometimes when I look back and I think about it, I wonder if after she did that, God is like, I got your kids, I got your grandkids, don't worry about I don't know. But I wonder
Mm.
about it. But that was always my experience. So I wasn't going to church or anything, but I would have all these conversations. And then, I started getting older. I still never really went to church. Maybe we go here and there. My house, my dad played golf on Sundays, and we stayed at home and we laughed at preachers on TV. That's literally that. Like, why is he sweating? Why is he yelling? That's what we did. Um, and so where I am now is just very, very funny, because I've become that preacher. But so that was the way I grew up. And I remember going through high school, then going to med school, and then being in my fifth year, 6 years of med school. So fifth year in med school. And I just got up one day and I was like, this is so weird. Like, I have been in this place. I've had opportunities to be parts of fellowships or serve God some kind of way, but I didn't do anything. I remember just sitting there and thinking, I was like, wow, did I waste the 5 years? Like, I really wish I did something. I could play the keyboard. I was really good at it, but I never used it. I was like, I could have used this. I could have been in the choirs and all of that stuff. And I kid you not, the next day I see, this church they have this camp meeting and they're like, we're going to send a bus to get the kids from college if you want to come and all of those things. I looked at it, I was like, huh, interesting. And I'm sure they did that every year. I just never noticed it. And then a friend of mine was like, hey, do you want to come for this? I was like, I guess, like, sure. And that was a 3-day meeting around Easter. And that was when I was like, okay, I'm all in, God. Let's do what we need to do here. And I think it was one of those 0 to 60 things, because I came back. They had a prayer meeting every day. I started joining that, joined the choir, joined the administrative team, started really digging into, the word. Like, what does God say about my life? What does he say about my money? What does he say about my health? And really building that relationship. And so everything that is ministry was kind of born out of that. So I did a lot of those things. And then moved over. So that was in Nigeria, moved over to the United States doing my training in New Jersey. And then one of those holidays I went back and then I met my husband. And so, we started talking and all of those things.
Who's very handsome, by the way. I'm not
He
jonesing
was
on your husband, but
very,
he's a
very
good-looking
handsome,
guy.
very
Yeah.
handsome. And so, we started talking, and I'm kind of quote unquote weird. It's not bad, it's just weird. I always looked at marriage as a merger, like a merger between two companies, not an emotional thing at all. Like, the emotional is the icing on the cake, but I'm like, okay, do you meet these criteria? What are the pros? What are the cons? Let's map this out. And that's kind of what I did. And I was like, okay, he fits the
Mm.
bill and he's cute. And you see what I'm saying? Like, and all, but that's the way my mind works. And
Yep.
so we decided, okay, decided to get married. And it was another 2 years before he moved over to the US and all of that. But he had been pastoring. Now again,
Mm.
socially shy, super introverted introvert, right? And I was like, oh my goodness, right? The first time I was on a stage, I was put on the stage and they put an usher beside me and said, don't let her move. Just so you get a feel for how not on, like, I'm like, this stage thing is not happening. And so when he moved over, then, we're part of, so Dominion City Church, the foundation, the headquarters, if you will, is in Nigeria. It's been around forever. And then so when he moved over here, then we planted the first one here.
Mm.
And boy, was that a journey. I ran away from everything. I ran away from leading people. They're like, you're responsible for the women. I'm like, no, I'm not. That's between them and Jesus. They'll figure it out. I ran away from all of those things. But my husband is he's a born mentor and he's a born nurturer. Like, there's gold in you and we are going to pull it out. That's kind of the way he is. And so he's super, super patient. I felt sorry for him. I was like, wow, look at all those pastors marry powerful women and you decided to marry me. Like, I don't do all this stuff. But I started learning, started teaching,
It's
started
kinda like being the
growing.
first lady, like, there's stuff you just gotta do, right?
Yeah,
Like, you
it's
go with it.
yeah, but
But
and I'm
you're on
not a
fire. When you're on that stage, you're on fire, like, something and it's probably not you, right? It's coming through you.
it is, and it's coming through me because many times, including the last time I was on stage, which was probably a week ago, um, I go up there, I'm like, Lord, you see all these people sitting here? They're expecting to hear a word from you. Whatever it is
Mhm.
they're expecting to hear, I don't have it. And that's not to say I don't prepare. Like I study a lot, I pray a lot, I grow a lot. I try to experience the word for myself a lot so I can be a gift to the people I lead, but that's not enough. You know what I mean? And
Mm.
so I'm standing there, I'm like, okay, Lord, so, your anointing, because that's what we need to do this, your words, so everybody's able to hear the word that they need because you know what's going on with them. I don't know what's going on
Mhm.
with them and all of that. And so, really, a lot of times after a service, I go and I watch it because I'm like, how did I say that? Like, what was that? I was like,
Yeah.
I'm like, Lord, you're amazing. I don't know how you
Yeah, be
do
like,
this
"That was
stuff.
good, let me write that down." That's
Yeah.
happens to me sometimes. I'm like, "Thank
Yeah.
you," you know?
Yeah. So it's very it's like, God is real. And I think for me, why I love what I do is because I was the person who would never go to church. I was the person who thought God destroys life. He'll send you as a missionary to some country where you'll go and die. And he only cared about spiritual things. He didn't care about my real life. But I understand that of course, he cares about our relationship with him. That's number one, but he does care about our health. He does care about our marriages. He does care about our finances. He does care about his business. In the Bible, he says so much about business. It's all there. And so I nicknamed myself Emmanuel a long time ago because I knew the name Emmanuel means God with us, like not some abstract God you can't reach. And I named myself that. This was me as a teenager because I was like,
Mm.
I want people to experience the reality of God, not some religious figure who's up there with a sledgehammer trying to take people out, but a true father who cares about his kids, who wants to help them, who's available to help. Like in the Bible, he says, my name is Jehovah Ezra, which means the Lord, your helper. Like he literally wants to help you. He says, I'm your shepherd. He literally wants to guide you. And I'm like, if I can help people see the reality of that and experience that for themselves, then I'm
Mm.
good because he's been misrepresented so much. If people actually meet him, understand him, they would love him because he's amazing. And
Mm.
to be able to do that with the church I pastor and even beyond that is just so beautiful. I'm grateful I get to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, what a blessing. I think it'd be just amazing, and, it was so cool to see that part of your life and kinda dig into that, and thank you so much for sharing on the show today. I'm like, "Oh, I hope she'll talk about this because I
Oh
just
yeah.
I'm fascinated. Do you I've heard you say, I think you were doing a live once, and you were talking about saying, you actually pray for your clients. How much do you bring over into your business, and how do you know I think some of us, maybe want to bring more of our spiritual teachings into areas of their businesses, and what do you think on that? What do you do?
Well, so I think I'll tell you what I do, but I want to start off by saying that I think different people are wired different and called differently. So it looks different for different people, which is not good or bad. It's just different. And so for me, I know that I was the kind of person that if you come at me like and God and all those things, I'm like back off. And I would just walk away and stop talking to you immediately. Right. And so I'm not as abrasive. And again, that's not bad. It's just different. And so what I do for my clients is, one is that I believe that like everyone deserves a relationship with a God who cares about them. Right. And so I pray for them. I also pray for their businesses. So there is a scripture that says, talking about Abraham, which ultimately we have access to the blessings of Abraham. It says, those who bless you are blessed and those who curse you are cursed. Like it's an automatic thing. And I'm like, Lord, that these are people who bless me. These are people who love working with me. These are people, if you look at my bank account, you will see their money, right? I would love for
Mm,
your blessing to show up in their business, is what your word says. And so that's something that
mm,
I do for them. When I was raising when my kids were younger, I used to feel like, oh, I'm not teaching them enough from, like the word of God. I'm not doing all of these things. And one day I felt like God said to my heart, He's like, be the scriptures. Like, you live out what the scriptures say. So even if you're not directly teaching them, they're learning from the way you act. And that's one thing I do in the marketplace. When you talk about the character, love, joy, peace, gentleness, meekness, self-control, faithfulness, all of those things, I embody those. So people go like, so what is it? And we can have a conversation about that without me, slapping you across the head and saying, this is what you need to do. And so
yeah.
the character of God, the abundance of God, people say to me, they're like, my first year in the EntreMD business school, I didn't believe I could do any of those things. I just believed in your belief in me. Why can
Mm,
I believe in them with reckless abandon? Because I know they're made in the image of God. I know there's gold in there. I know that they're wired for success. And so it's so easy for me to believe. So I embody the nature of God, the character, and all of those things. So some people are even like, my grandmother always prayed for me. She always wanted me to go back to church. I never did, but I've been around you, and my grandmother will love you. She's dead and gone, but I'm going back to church. I didn't say anything to them
mm,
because they can sense it, right? People walk in,
yeah.
they're like, there's such a light about you. They don't know what to call it, but that's what it is. And the other thing I do is at my events, because for me, my faith and my business are so, you can't separate them. They're so intertwined. Like, people are like, how come you're always how come you're always happy? Like, I see people, their businesses grow and they get more and more stressed, but you get like, you're just carefree. Like, how come? I don't have an answer for that that is not tied to my faith. You see what I'm saying? And so when I do my retreats for my clients, I do two of those a year. I have an optional session that is faith and entrepreneurship. I'm like, well, there's this
Mm,
whole other part of me. I'm not going to shove it down your throat. I have enough respect for you. However, if you want to come hear about it, come on and let's talk. And then I unpack all of that. So
mm.
I introduce it by being an example, and then just setting, like, for people who are curious, just setting the stage for them to come experience that.
Yeah. Oh, I wanna do a whole part 2 with you at some point. This is just there's
Let's
so
do
much
it.
to unpack here. There's so much juiciness and yeah, I think just, what I've felt from you when I've met you, which I think this is what your clients see too. It's the "I'll have what she's having" kind of thing. She looks just happy and glowing and so clear and confident in your convictions, in who you are and how you work and your goals. It's just marvelous to be around. So,
Oh,
um,
thank you.
2 more things. For you're a very busy woman, obviously, so much going on. We haven't even tapped into your whole family and all that. But you've come to almost every, I think, meeting of the trust that we've had since you've been a member.
Yeah.
Could you share a bit about why this community has been a part of your world?
So I am a firm believer of this concept of, people say there's no shortcut to success. Now, of course, there is. And that shortcut is people. Um, there are people who have gone through what you want to go through. There are people who have done 10 times what you want to do. And if you can insert yourself in those environments, something that would have taken you 10 years to learn, 20 years to learn, you can compress that and learn that in a few months, right? Like, that's really the way that works. And so one of the things that I've tried to do is make sure I put myself in environments that are environments that will help me make transitions quicker. That's why I've never missed any meeting, because I'm like, oh, yeah, a group of women who are running 7 and 8 figure businesses and all of that stuff in one room where they're willing to share, and they're sharing the ups and the downs and the strategies and all of that. Like, that's a room to be in, period. Right. And so for me, that's what the trust has meant for me. So I'll tell you, I think I told you this story the last time I saw you, but when I joined the trust was right when I had started EntreMD. Our first year we did about 100 grand. Our second year we did about 260 thereabout. And I remember, I don't think I'd even really set goals for that year. Like I was kind of playing with the numbers. And I came for my first trust meeting, and I don't remember who it was, but the person was like, someone approached us. They wanted to buy our business. It'll be a 9-figure exit. But I was thinking maybe if we give it a few years that we can actually take it to 9 figures by ourselves. At this point, we're doing an easy 1 million a month. I will never forget that statement. I
Mm.
said, easy 1 million a month, easy 1 million a month, like 1 million and easy and a month in the same sentence. I was like, cool. Okay. That's how we're going to do it.
Yeah.
I said, all right. And so I said to myself, I said, if she's doing an easy million a month, then I should probably just do 1 million a year. We can discuss the easy part later, but let's just make it $1 million a year. And that was where I made that decision. And it was not a thought I had thought of. Like I'd taken my practice to $1 million. That's how I got into the trust in the first place. But for this other business, um, I hadn't quite figured it out. So after that meeting, I stayed, for an extra day, and it was in Miami. So I went down to the beach and I was pacing. I paced on that beach for 3 hours. I don't think I've told you that part. I paced for 3 hours. And all I was doing was trying to lean into the belief that that year I would take my company to 1 million. And I
Mm.
was like, I will stay on this beach for as long as it takes until I can walk away with that conviction. And so I did that. So, I'm pacing, I'm imagining, I'm praying, I'm doing all this stuff. And then 3 hours, boom. I was like, yep, absolutely, we can do that. I walked up to my computer, went back to my room, got on my computer, changed the price for my programs, all of those things with the conviction that it was worth that much. We will over deliver on that, and we were going to cross it. And that was it. And that year we
Mm.
crossed 1 million in revenue. It's
Yeah.
all about being in the room.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely.
Ne- Nneka, what is the reward in all this for you?
Oh my good. The reward is that who I become and who I was meant to become are the same. That's my reward. My reward
Mm.
is when I leave the planet, I will be leaving an empty body because I squeezed out every potential. I did everything I was supposed to do. I impacted all the people I was supposed to impact. I left the change I was supposed to leave in the world. I did for my generation what I was supposed to do, and they just got an empty body, and I'm out. That's why I
I
do what
love
I do.
that.
That's the reward.
Thank you. Are we going to see you in Naples in a few weeks?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah. I
cool. I
booked
can't
everything
wait to
last year. Yeah. I'll be there.
fantastic. Okay, I can't wait to see you. Tell everyone as well where they can learn more about you. Where should they follow you?
Yeah, the easiest place would be my website is EntreMD.com. So ENTREMD.com. And you're listening to this podcast. You have questions and all of that stuff. My email is Dr. Una, so DRUNA at EntreMD.com. You can just send me an email, put in the subject line, the reward podcast, and I'll respond. That's my own email. I'll respond to
I
it.
love that. Old school. That's
Yeah.
refreshing. That is refreshing. I like that. Email me.
Email me. Do it.
Don't DM me on Instagram. Email. Maybe I'll go back to that. I like that. Thank you so much just for being who you are. You're such an inspiration to me personally. I don't know if you know that. I'm just in tears. Like how much conviction you hold. Like I felt that from the moment I met you. And just there's so much there like that I feel. And just, I love just witnessing all you're creating. We love having you in the trust. And I can't wait to see you in Florida.
I can't wait to see you. Thank you for having me. This was great.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. Subscribe now to the Reward Podcast to be sure to not miss an episode. And don't forget to visit jointhetrust.org to learn more about our modern community for forward-thinking 7- and 8-figure women entrepreneurs. You can learn more, apply to join us, or refer another woman you know who is over the $1 million mark and is ready for a different type of women's network. We have events coming up both live and online that are truly creating new possibilities for female leaders. That's jointhetrust.org. See you there.